reflection. I'm continuing the series on the promises of God, and today I'm specifically looking at the promises about peace and hope that he gave to each one of us. Now, it's really interesting, but if we think about the promises that we've discussed already, mainly in the Old Testament, is from God, were made directly to prophets, and the prophets would then tell the people what's going on. There were, as I can recall, occasions where Jesus spoke to whole nations directly. But here we have a situation where Jesus has come to earth. He's the Son of God, and he's making promises not just to his disciples, but for all those people who would listen to him. And these collections of promises give us great hope, and especially when we believe that he is the Saviour of the world. Now, some of these promises are very famous and well talked about, so I'm going to start with one of those, and that's from Matthew. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." There's so much in that passage. And I must say, when I read that last bit, I'm always thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be lovely if my yoke was easy and my burden was light? But we're all human beings, and we have the journey of life to go through. And sometimes it is easy and joyful, but sometimes the burden does feel heavy, especially if we are feeling lots of responsibilities, mainly for our families maybe, or friends. Or maybe right now you feel the burden for the troubles in the world, and certainly I do regarding Afghanistan and Haiti right now, and I just feel burdened and really not knowing what to do. And there are times, aren't we just feel weary. You know, we've worked and you know, we've been trying to solve problems and solve issues, and we get really tired, and we just want to rest. And on Wednesday I alluded to the fact that I was desperate for a duvet day. But you know, it really is important to have rest time. And rest time is important not only to give our bodies rest, but we also need to rest spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And if we don't have that rest, we become overburdened and we can suffer burnout. So there's two things here that we need to learn from this particular passage. Is one, that we can share our burdens. Now, often if we share our burdens with our families, which is right sometimes to do, but actually, and we're sharing the burden, but it also means that they take on the burden too. And as I said before, sometimes that's right. But actually, if we can share our burdens with Jesus, that makes a huge difference, because Jesus says that he's gentle and humble in heart, and we will find rest for our souls. Now, if I can give you a physical image, and this is still happening in many parts of the world when they're ploughing fields particularly, you get pairs of oxen that are harnessed and work together, and they pull behind the plough. And you can imagine sometimes the soil is really hard and dry, particularly in places of Africa, for example, or India, and the work is extremely hard. If a man were to do it on his own with a plough, it would take hours and hours. And even if he had just one oxen, the work would be easier and the work would get done. But what we have discovered is that if there's two oxen working together, it means that the work is shared equally. They encourage one another to keep going when the time is tough. And if one gets a little tired, the other one can take over for a short while and they can swap. And actually that's what Jesus is saying. He's saying, tie yourselves up to me, harness yourself next to me, and we can work and walk the journey together. And the burden is shared. And when it gets really tough, I can take a bit more of the burden and just let you rest a while. And I love that image, and I can tell you now there have been many times in my life when I've actually had to do that. I've had to just literally, in my mind, harness myself to Jesus in order to get through some really tough situations. The second thing is this, that we do need to withdraw and rest. And that means, sometimes having some space just to be ourselves on our own with Jesus. That doesn't mean to say that we're just, going to go off for a very long period of time without our families and leave them to carry the burden. But just even in the course of a day, if you can take 5 minutes to go and sit in the garden and literally withdraw from all the pressures of life and just rest and give that time to you and Jesus, and just even if you're not having to say anything, just sit there and just ask for Jesus to come and be with you and for you to be harnessed to him. And at that time you could of course cast your burdens onto Jesus, or you could just listen and see what Jesus has to say. And I think that's really important. I get a time every morning where I try and withdraw and do my prayer, but also try and just sit and listen for a while. I'm not brilliant at it, but I'm much better if I'm in creation. But there are times where once a month I will try and take a whole day just to be with God. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'll just sit, though that's important too. But I might be knitting or doing something creative, or doing some of this mindfulness colouring, or doing all sorts of things to help. My front door's just gone. Hold on.